Why does Britain look the way it does? Why are some regions mountainous, others flat, some fertile, others difficult to farm? Because the shape of the land is not accidental. It's the result of forces that have been acting for millions of years. Welcome to the making of Britain. Britain's landscape can feel familiar, even predictable. Hills, valleys, plains and coastlines form a pattern that seems settled and permanent. But beneath that familiarity lies a complex geological history. The land has been folded, uplifted, eroded and reshaped over vast periods of time. Mountain ranges formed and wore down. Rivers carved their paths. Glaciers moved across the surface, altering everything in their path. The result is a landscape that reflects layers of change, each stage leaving its mark on what exists today. One of the most noticeable features of Britain is the contrast between different regions. The north and west tend to be higher, more rugged, more resistant to change. The south and east are generally lower, flatter, and more suited to agriculture. This pattern is not random. It reflects the underlying geology. Older, harder rocks in the north and west, and younger, softer rocks in the south and east. Features such as pennines act as natural divides, influencing movement, settlement, and communication. These divisions have shaped not just the physical landscape, but the human one as well. Water has played a central role in shaping the land. Rivers have cut through rock, creating valleys that provide routes for travel and settlement. These valleys often became the sites of towns and cities, offering access to water, fertile land, and transport. Over time, river systems helped define regions, linking some areas while separating others. The courses of rivers were not designed with human use in mind, but they became integral to it. They influenced where people lived, how they moved, and how communities developed. The last ice age left a profound imprint on Britain. Glaciers covered large parts of the land, grinding down surfaces, carving out valleys and depositing material as they advanced and retreated. When the ice melted, it left behind a landscape that had been fundamentally altered. Hills were reshaped, valleys deepened, and new features created. The effects of this period are still visible today, from the shape of the countryside to the distribution of soils. The land that emerged was not the same as the land that had existed before. At this point, it's worth considering how much of what we see as natural or inevitable is actually the result of long processes of change. When looking at the landscape, does it appear fixed, or does it suggest a history of transformation? And how much do you think these physical features still influence where people live and how they move today? Share your thoughts in the comments, because the relationship between land and life is central to this story. The shape of the land has always influenced how it is used. In flatter, more fertile areas, agriculture could be developed more easily, supporting larger populations. In more rugged regions, farming was more difficult, often limited to grazing rather than crop production. This created patterns of settlement that reflected the capabilities of the land. Dense populations developed in some areas, while others remained sparsely inhabited. These patterns were not simply the result of choice, they were shaped by what the land could support. Geography can act as both a barrier and a route. Mountain ranges, hills and difficult terrain can limit movement, creating division between regions. At the same time, valleys, plains and coastlines can facilitate connection. In Britain, these features have played a role in shaping communication and interaction. Some areas became centres of exchange and movement, while others remained more isolated. Over time, these differences contributed to regional identities, influenced by both proximity and separation. From a modern perspective, with advanced transport and infrastructure, the limitations imposed by geography may seem less significant, but for most of history they were central. Travel was slower, more difficult, and more dependent on the terrain. Settlements developed where conditions allowed, and routes followed the easiest paths through the landscape. The decisions people made were shaped by these realities. They built where it was practical, moved where it was possible, and adapted to the conditions they faced. The shape of the land was not something to be overcome easily. It was something to be worked with. Over time, the physical characteristics of regions became part of how they were understood. The ruggedness of some areas, the openness of others, the fertility or difficulty of the land. These features contributed to local identities. They influenced ways of life, economic activities, and cultural perceptions. While these associations are not fixed or universal, they reflect a long-standing connection between people and place. The land is not just a backdrop, it is part of the story. Even today, the shape of the land continues to influence Britain. Infrastructure follows routes determined by geography. Cities expand within the limits set by terrain. Agricultural patterns reflect the underlying condition of soil and the landscape. While technology has reduced some of these constraints, it has not removed them entirely. The imprint of geological processes remains visible, shaping decisions in ways that are sometimes obvious, sometimes subtle. If the landscape of Britain has been shaped by forces far beyond human control, what does that suggest about the relationship between environment and history? How much of what has developed here is a result of choice, and how much is a response to conditions that were already in place? Thanks for walking a little further along the path that made Britain with me. If you liked it, there's a button especially to let me know, and I'd really appreciate a click. If you subscribe, there's a whole back catalogue of videos like this for you to enjoy, including this one, chosen especially for you by YouTube. Have a look, they think you'll like it, and I'm sure you will. So thanks again for watching, take care, until next time, bye.